You can draw this in Procreate. During this super easy Procreate tutorial, I will guide you through the steps of creating this pen and ink style artwork. We'll start off by creating a rough little sketch of our wolf head with the landscape inside, and then we'll start inking our work and add a variety of texture to our illustration. During this tutorial, we will be using super handy free Procreate brushes. If you don't already have them, then you can go to freefromflow.com to get them. And like I said, they are totally free. And once you have reached the end of this Procreate tutorial, I'm sure you will feel super proud, and perhaps you would like to share your work. If you are sharing it on Instagram, then don't forget to tag me in the image, not just in the description, because that way I will be able to find your work, and then maybe we will see it in the next video. Just like these amazing results from my friends at Patreon. This might be the 100th time you hear this if you are a diehard flow creator, but Patreon is the place you can go if you're starting to develop a serious Procreate tutorial addiction, or if you just want to get your Procreate drawing and painting skills to the next level. At Patreon, I have more than 150 tutorials, and they range from beginner levels to more advanced levels. But let's get started on this tutorial. We're working on a canvas that is 2300 pixels by 3000 pixels. We will only be using the color black, and at the end we will add a paper texture, which I have linked in the description, but perhaps you already have it from the previous pen and ink tutorials that I have shared. So now, if you are ready, let's get started. We will start off by creating our wolf head shape. First, let's grab black. If you don't already have black selected, you can double tap here at the bottom of the circle. This will be the color we will be using throughout this entire tutorial. And then for our wolf head, let's go to the treasure chest brush pack and grab the wolf head stem brush. Now the opacity should be at 100% and the size at, well, I have it at 58. And let's just tap on our canvas. Then once you have this, of course, you can go to the move and transform tool, the little arrow, and you can move the head around until it's placed about here. Then let's go to the layer menu, the two little squares, we'll slide to the left, tap duplicate, and then we'll make this one white. So technically we're not just using black, we'll also use white. Just for now, let's double tap here and drag it onto our wolf head. And you can see that you get this slight little outline. I want it to be a little bit thicker, so let's go to the move and transform tool again, the little arrow. Make sure that you have it set to uniform, and then make this a little bit smaller and place it in the center of that other head. So your outline gets just a little bit thicker. Then let's tap the arrow again. Then we'll go back to the layer menu and let's pinch these together. And now on top of this, we are going to create a little sketch to decide where all our elements should be. Let's do that on a new layer. Let's tap the plus. And then for our brush, let's go to the sketching brushes, which are Procreate standard brushes, and then use the 6B pencil. Let's make sure that we grab black again, or a dark gray, or whatever color you like. Now the opacity is at 100%, and I have the size set to 50%. And now I want some of the elements to follow the shape of this wolf head. For instance, I want some mountains, and they'll start here along that snout. And they'll go up here, and then downward here. So we'll have the horizon about here. Then we'll have another mountain that will connect to that back part here. So it'll move along this line. And then we'll have another one right here in the center. So we'll have three little mountains. Maybe we can make this one a little bit higher. And then for the top part, I'd just like to follow the silhouette of the wolf and then create a sky with a sickle moon here and some stars. Just sketch them out here. Let's make some simple star shapes. And we can also follow that outer edge, make it a bit more simple. We don't need all those individual hairs. But we can add some spiky shapes. Then in front of the mountains, I'd like some trees. And for the sketching phase, you can just make them a little wiggly. You don't have to draw them all in detail. I just want a row of pine trees with various sizes. So for a sketch, you really don't have to think about the little details. You just want to use that as a way to arrange your elements. And it will be a guide when we create our line art, when we start inking. Just a line of trees. All the way to the right. And for the mountains, I'd like an extra little line like this, like a ridge. And here as well. Jagged line. And for this one, so move down, then back up a little bit. And then down here. Then in the foreground, I'd like a little road like this. It's like an S shape and then another S shape right next to it. Maybe we can make it a bit more to the left here. Then another S shape right next to it, parallel, but it gets broader, this road, as we move to the foreground. So here it attaches in this area, and here it attaches right down here. A nice swirling road. Then in this lower area, we'll have grass, and let's also add a little tent. Just start with a triangular shape like this. Then a line towards the right, and another line here. And then another shape like this, another line. And I'd like to have some wood here. This is crossing like this. Add a tent opening. So this is the basic layout of our scene. Now let me just grab the eraser. Let me tap and hold the eraser to make it switch to the 6B pencil. And let's just tidy up the road a little bit, because it needs to be readable in our line art phase. Okay, I think something like this. You can go back to the brush, make it a bit more thick. Now that we have this, we can pinch these together, put them on one layer like this. And then let's lower the opacity by tapping the N and sliding to the left to around 30%. And then let's tap the plus to get started on our inking work. Now for our inking, I'd like to grab a different brush from the Treasure Chest brush pack. And that's the fine liner brush. Let's go up through all these brushes. Here, the fine liner brush will still be using black. And the opacity of this brush should be at 100% and the size is at 6%. And let's start out with our mountains. Let's start here, create a line going up. Now let's zoom in a little bit. Then we'll go down here. And the line can be a little bit wobbly all the way to here. And then we have another line going down a little bit to the right, then downward again. And another line here. Then the other mountain, let's start with the one on the right. We'll go up here. And then down along that back of the neck of our our wolf. Then down here, back up a little bit, go down here, and then that center one. And of course, you don't have to follow your sketch exactly. Don't worry about that. It's just a guide. And then a line over here, like this. So now we have the base of our mountains. Now let's add some texture to them. Let's start with this one. And let's make lines on the left side of the mountain. We'll make multiple lines with some breaks in between. This is going to add some nice texture, some nice interest to this mountain. So you can have breaks in your lines, especially as you move towards the bottom of the mountain. You can add some more breaks so that that area is a little bit lighter, but near the top here, there are longer lines and it's a little bit darker. And follow the shape, that bit of a curve of the mountain. And the lines can be a little bit wonky. This is really just a relaxing process, adding this texture. And you can add some extra lines here near the top, making that even darker, filling that space a bit. Here also following that curve. Until you have covered that entire left side of this mountain. All the way to the bottom. Here you can add some extra, making it a little bit darker there. And then on the right side of the mountain, we'll also add lines, but a lot less. So also some wiggly lines and some dashed lines like this. So we want some nice interest there, a little bit of texture, but not too much. It's the lighter side of this mountain. Also over here, little dashed line. And then we'll do the same for the other mountains. So we'll start with this one, make these long lines on the left side of the mountain, nicely filling this area. And some lines are broken. And sometimes you can make a long line all the way to the left. And your lines don't have to look exactly the same as mine, of course. Just relax and enjoy the process of filling this area without too much thought. And some extra lines here, making it a little bit darker. Just short strokes. And then on the other side, we'll make less lines again. With some breaks, some dashed lines, and some shorter lines. creating an interesting difference between the left and right side of the mountain. Over here, also some dashed lines. And then finally, for this mountain, again, we'll do the same. I will skip ahead. Of course, you can just hit pause, relax, and fill your third mountain. So it'll end up looking something like this. Then let's move on. Let's work on our sky. Let's zoom in and let's start following that outline of our wolf. So we're following our sketch line. And again, you don't have to follow it exactly. Make some pointy shapes here to give that suggestion of that fur there. I'm changing it a little bit. So every wolf, every illustration will look unique. You don't have to copy my piece exactly. So we have that line. Now let's create our moon. You can draw a line like this and hold your pen in place to make it snap to a quick shape. And then again, go along the inside, do that again, hold your pen in place until you get a nice sickle moon like this. I feel like it's a little bit thick, so let's just tap ellipse here. And then you can just change it a little bit. Move those handles until you have something that you like. Then tap the brush and create some stars. Try making them a little bit bigger than you eventually want them to be. Same goes for the little circles. It's easier to make them a little bit smaller later on. Little star, little circles, which are also little stars. And I'll move this a little bit because I'm not following my sketch exactly either. And one over here. And some more of these circles. Now we are going to drop in our color. You can drag the color like this, then hold it, and then you can adjust the threshold here at the top by moving to the left or right. Well, I'll set it at around 44%, then grab the brush again. And then you can make some adjustments. You can see some areas that aren't filled exactly. You can adjust your stars a little bit. Going along the edges also for the moon. Just tidy things up. And sometimes perhaps you want to add a little star or make one a little bit bigger. What you can do is tap and hold the eraser so it switches to the fine liner brush. Let's set it to 6%. And then you can just go over these areas and adjust a star, for instance, and it'll have that same outer texture. If you would use a very crisp brush like the monoline, for instance, it will look weird. Make this one a little bit bigger and then just switch back and forth between the brush and the eraser to refine these areas, fill gaps, make some stars bigger or smaller. Make sure everything looks tidy. until you have gone past all of these stars, all of the edges, and you're happy with all of them. Once that's the case, we can move on to the next stage, and that's creating the trees. Let's do that on a separate layer. So let's tap the plus, and then let's move in here. And first we'll make a line up, and then we'll make these downward curves. Then leave a little gap, make a bit of a lower curve on both sides. And every once in a while, leave a bit of a bigger gap so you don't get this repetitive tree. So for instance, 3 lines or 4, then a little gap, and then again. That way you can make a variation of trees. Make some a little bit taller and some smaller. These are very simple trees, but they totally match the style of this piece. A long line. And try making these lines, these curves, a little bit slightly longer as you move towards the bottom. They definitely shouldn't get shorter, because these branches at the top, they are shorter, smaller than near the bottom. It's a bit like a slight triangular shape. You can make some tops a little bit more pointy. I'll just work from the left to the right, making this variety of trees. And I think it's pretty relaxing doing something easy and repetitive like this. But if you get a little bit impatient, then of course you can just go to the layer, slide to the left, tap duplicate, and have duplicates of the trees that you already have and move them around in front of the mountains. I'm just going to continue drawing them by hand. You can just pause the video and do the same until you have something that looks like this. Now let's move on and work on our tent. Let's do that on a separate layer again. Let's tap the plus. And we're making a separate layer because that way we can easily move around our tent or resize it if we need to. And if we would put it on the same layer as the trees and we would want to move around the tent, then the trees would move around as well. So things like that are great to keep in mind when deciding if you want something on a separate layer or not. Now let's zoom in a little bit. To create our tent, let's start with a beam or like a well, what is it? Or like a branch or a pole shaped like this. And then another one intersecting here. Have a little circle like this. Maybe a little bit thinner. And it's okay if it's a little bit wonky. Then we have a triangular shape like this, connected to those poles. And now let's create some flaps like this, shaped like this, and one here. And then let's make that center area dark. Let's just color that in. And then let's create a pole over here. And one crossing with a little circle like this. Then a curved line from the front to the back. And one here. And then let's make lines like this here, as if that canvas is stretching. and some lines here. And perhaps we can do some hatching, some lines here on those beams. That'll add a little bit of interest, a little bit of texture and variation to our little tent. I think our tent looks cute. Now let's work on our grass. To create our grass, we are going to work with a selection. First, let's make a new layer. Let's place it underneath our tent and our trees. So let's place it here on top of layer 2. Let's tap the plus. Then let's go to the selection tool. That's the S shape ribbon. Set it to freehand and make sure that color fill is turned off. And now we are going to make a selection of our outline of our wolf. So let's follow that shape a bit. Go around. And then behind our trees, a bit like this. Then we'll go along the other end. Now let's just connect these two parts. Tap that little circle. And then I want to remove the tent and the road from this selection. You can do that by tapping remove here. And then you can make another selection. Like this. Loop around, close it, and then it'll get removed. You can do the same for the tent. Just go along the outer edges. Go down here. Close the selection, and there we have it. So now all the grass, the entire grass area is selected. I feel like maybe I went a little bit too high here, so we can just remove that as well. Close the selection. Tidy this up a little bit. So now we have a nice selection of that grassy plain. Then let's make a, no, we don't have to make a new layer. We already have a layer. Let's grab another brush. We will go up here and grab the Stipple 2.0 brush. The opacity of the brush should be at 100%. I have the size set to 30%. And then let's go over our grassy plain. I'm not using a lot of pressure. Starting with a light area. And then here at the top, we can add some pressure. We can turn up the pressure, make that a little bit darker near those trees. And fill the rest of the area as well, a bit more. Also add a shadow area right here near the tent. It's casting a shadow because we have the moon there. So the shadow should be on this side. Let's also add a little bit of darker spackles around the road. Just add some nice texture to the grass until you have something like this. Now let's turn off the selection. Let's tap the S shape ribbon. Let's also turn off our sketch here at the bottom. And then let's make our stipple brush nice and small. Let's go for something like 1 or 2%. And then let's go in here and add some extra stipples around the edges, making that less tidy. We'll just go along the edges of the road of that path. You can also add some extra small stipples on the grass, of course. And we can go along the outer edge just a little bit. Making it a bit more messy, a bit more organic. And then finally, to add some more texture, I'd like to go back to the fine liner brush over here in our treasure chest brush pack, and then just add some little grass texture like these little upward lines, short strokes. Like these are some patches of grass. They can go in front of the road. You can also create some little ovals, like little rocks. This will add to the texture of that grassy plain. So just in some random places, add that little grass, some small little ovals. Until you have something like this. Now for a final touch, you can add a paper texture to your work. You need to go all the way to the top of your layers, then go to the wrench, then to add, and then to insert a photo. And then you can select a paper texture. I have linked one in the description. Now let's zoom out a little bit. Make sure that your paper covers the entire canvas. Then go to your layer menu, tab the N right next to the name of your layer, then scroll up to multiply, and then you can play around with the opacity. You can turn that down a bit to, for instance, 55%, and then you have a subtle paper texture for your ink work. I hope you have enjoyed following this tutorial. If you did, then I think you might like this tutorial too. So go ahead and turn this into a streak. I would like to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time for the next tutorial.